as in buying my first house was really, really stressful. It was more stressful than I thought it was going to be. A lot of people say that what's stressful for them is actually finding their house, their first house. But for me, the thing that really completely took over my life was everything after that, actually finding the house. So communicating with my loan officer every single day, getting questions about different documents that I needed, um, not knowing that I had to pay for insurance for the whole year ahead of time, and scrambling to find money, scrambling to find the documents they were asking for. I mean, there were so many things that came up, and like these few things that I just mentioned are just the tip of the iceberg about all the different things that seem to have been going wrong. Um, it got so bad, the stress got so bad that one day I was at work. I was facing my computer. My office door was open, office that I shared, and my coworker came in, and I didn't realize that somebody was coming in because the door was open. And my coworker tapped me on my shoulder from the back, and I started screaming. I screamed as I turned around, and as I looked at him, and he had this like completely confused look on his face, I started crying. I started bawling. Esteban, if you're watching this, if you watch this sometime, I wonder if you remember this moment. But I had gotten so stressed from the whole process that him just tapping my shoulder completely made me lose it. And I think one thing that would have helped me not be so stressed is knowing what to expect. I have gotten two mortgages after the first one. So I bought another house, I refinanced that first house. And those experiences were so much better. They were so smooth. And the difference was I knew exactly what was coming, and I prepared so that I had a much better experience. So today I want to walk you through how to buy your house, so the home buying process from beginning to end, so that you, my friend, don't burst into tears in front of your coworkers like I did. Um, our Miss T. Allen Stokes. Hi, how are you? Actually, would you change your name? Hi, Tekiva. New York, New York. Yes, I love New York. Even if you're not New York City, New York City, New York State, everybody New York, my favorite state in all the US. All right, so I've broken down the four different stages of buying your house. So think of this, there's all these different steps that you have to do, but there's four big pieces. And if you do all this in order and you focus it one step at a time, you are going to have a better chance of not running into unexpected occurrences or glitches that make this whole thing stressful. I think every single woman should buy their first house on their own. So I am all for buying houses. Even though I had this terrible experience in the beginning, I am all for buying houses, which is why I want to make this process easy for you. And so let's go ahead and start with the very first step. So the very first step is getting real with yourself and getting clear about what it is that you want for your money and your lifestyle. The reality is when I shouldn't have checked the comments. I am laughing because I had a funny comment come in. But the reality is, you want to make sure that you know exactly what it is that you want. Every single person that is involved in the home buying process, so your realtor, your mortgage lender, the title company, all these different people get paid based on commission. So there is an incentive for them, for you to spend more money. And unfortunately, not every professional has your best interest in mind. So you have to, before you even talk to any of your vendors going to help you to buy the house, you have to be clear on what it is that you want. So as you get presented with different options, you don't get distracted and veered off. So, for example, when it comes to your mortgage, when I got my first mortgage, I was making $48,000 a year. That was my salary. They were willing to give me a mortgage for $600,000. Now, I could have taken that whole $600,000 and bought a house. I did not do that because I took the time to get clear on my money. So you want to get clear on what is your budget exactly? What is it that you're trying to spend? What is it that actually works for you? Don't worry about what is it the mortgage company is going to give you. You first have to be clear on how much you can actually afford to put towards this house payment every single month. And to get clear and prioritize on what your money is and stay focused, you also have to think about what it is that you're trying to do with this house. Are you buying this house because you want to make extra money every month? Are you buying this house because you want to sell it next year? Are you buying this house to build wealth? Are you buying this house because you're just tired of your landlord? What is the actual main reason that you are buying this house for? You want to be crystal clear on that question before you even go and talk to a realtor, because you're going to get presented with all these different options. And if you're not crystal clear on what it is that you want, it's going to be easy for you to get completely thrown off track. So, for example, for me, whenever I buy a house, my priority is to not pay for housing. I want to live for free. That's what I want to do. So, if I'm buying a multifamily property, I want to make sure that my tenants in that building are going to cover my housing expenses completely. If I'm buying a single family property, I want to make sure that there is an extra room in that house and that extra room has its own bathroom so I can get a roommate. So if I'm looking at a house, if I'm talking to a realtor and this realtor says, okay, there's this beautiful house, but it's a 1 bedroom, I can easily say absolutely not, because that doesn't fit my main priority of making sure that I'm not paying for my housing. So, what is it that you are trying to do with this house? If you are uh, just saying, I want to buy a house and that's it, it's going to be really easy for somebody else to veer you towards what they want. And you're going to have a harder time making decisions because you don't have I guess, a measuring point of what it is that's going to make you sway this way or that way, right? So if you know, I'm going to go to the store, I want to buy a dress that's red, right? Anytime you see a dress that's not red, you can easily say no, 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 no. So you want to have that same thought process as you're thinking about what you want as an outcome for this house, because that'll make all your decisions down the line a heck of a lot easier. So know what your end goal is with this house in terms of why are you buying it. Get clear on your budget before you talk to a lender, and then you want to understand what's happening with your credit score. Your credit score needs to be at least a 580 to buy a house. So before you even go talk to anybody, make sure you check your credit score, make sure it is at least that 580. And if it's not, then don't even worry about talking to a realtor, talking to a lender, because that's irrelevant because you don't meet that credit qualification. You got to work on that first. So that's the very first thing I want to do, is just getting clear with yourself, getting honest, and getting focused. M. Jean, hello, ATL in the house. I have been to Atlanta recently. I think I like it. I might have to come visit y'all down there more. All right. If there's any questions as I go along, make sure you drop it in the chat. I am checking. But so step number 1, get clear. Step number 2, confirm that you can get financing. Don't worry about doing this before you know what you want, before you know what your budget is, before you have checked your credit. Once all those are in line, then move forward to confirming that you can get financing. So a lot of people think that when you are getting a pre-approval for a mortgage, you are applying for a mortgage. You are not. It's like, you are going on a date with somebody and they say, okay, you're cool, I like you, we can keep talking. That's what a pre-approval is. This is not the application yet. But that pre-approval, that getting the nod, yes, you're cool, we can keep hanging out, that's enough for you to go ahead and start looking at houses. So in this time where you are confirming your finances, you are going to get all the different documents that you are going to need to apply for this loan. So if you are watching on Facebook, if you go ahead and go onto my the picture on top of my page, you can actually get a copy of that checklist. YouTube, I will drop a link in the. Can I drop a link in the comments right now? Actually, I'll drop a link in the comments with a list of all those documents that you are going to need. to get this house. So you're going to need 2 years worth of taxes. You're going to need your pay stub. You're going to need bank statements. There are a few documents that you want to have ready. And if you don't get those ready ahead of time, it's going to stress you out when you're getting asked for these things and they need them ASAP. So you want to get those ready beforehand. You want to go talk to at least 3 different lenders. So whether you go to a bank or you go to a mortgage broker or you go to a credit union, it doesn't really matter. You're going to talk to 3 different people that can do a mortgage for you. And you want to just have a conversation with them first, because you got to have a good vibe with this person. So depending on what your personality is, you want to make sure that this person that you're working with is going to provide the service that you want. So for me, I ask a lot of questions. I want the details. So if I'm talking to a lender and they seem like they're disregarding my questions, I'm not going to work with that person. Because remember, you are not desperate here. That person that you're talking to, that lender, if you decide to work with them, they're going to get a huge commission off of you. So don't be afraid to talk to different people, get a feel for them. And once you feel that this is a good match for you, that, you can date this person, you can get along, you like him, not date him technically, but that they're going to meet your needs in terms of how you want to be treated, the questions you want answered, their response time, how easily it is for you to understand them when they're talking to you. Once you feel good, you want to go ahead and ask 3 different people, 3 different lenders for a pre-approval letter. What they're going to do is look at those documents, look at how much you make, look at your credit score, look at your debt, and let you know, okay, based on what we're looking at, we can give you up to this amount of money and a mortgage loan. And it's going to be printed out on a letter. That is what you are going to take to a realtor. And that's when you start looking at houses. Don't fall in love and start looking at houses before you have this pre-approval letter, because you might be looking at houses that are worth $500,000. Meanwhile, you can only get pre-approved for $150,000. And this is why you also want to make sure when you talk to 3 different lenders and get pre-approvals from 3 different lenders. That way you can be sure that if one person says, no, we can only give you $150,000, the second person says the same thing, the third person the same thing, then you know that, okay, that really is the number. Whereas if somebody says $150,000, somebody else says $400,000, somebody else says $300,000, then that doesn't make sense. You want to get a sense of why there's that discrepancy, and then look at the numbers that they give you, look at the estimate that they give you, which is going to show you all their fees, all the interest, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go into too much detail into that because we could just talk about that for a whole hour. So once you have your pre-approval letter, you are going to go ahead and now you're going to talk to a realtor. Most realtors won't even talk to you without a pre-approval letter. Every now and then they will, but they get paid after you get a house. So it doesn't make sense for them to be working with you if they don't have the proof that you can actually go ahead and buy this house. So you're going to bring your pre-approval letter to that realtor and you're going to find a house. That is this next step, is actually finding the house. Because you took the time in the beginning to think about what it is that you want, you should be crystal clear as to what type of building you want, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, whether you want a garage or whatever. But this shouldn't be based on emotion. This should be based on the facts. It should be based on that outcome you want. It should be based on the amount that you've been pre-approved for. And it should be based on that budget that you looked at initially, right? It is really easy to start looking at houses and get carried away with, well, this house has the beautiful kitchen, so it's an extra $10,000. That's what I want. Or this house has this gigantic bedroom, so that's what I want because I want this lush bedroom. But if you took the time in the beginning to get clear on what your end goal is and how you're going to get there, then all this extra distraction, right, of the beautiful things should not distract you. It should not deter you or confuse you, because you should be clear as to what you're trying to accomplish with this. So Just quick tip, don't be trying to go in and look in every single house. If you look at the criteria, it doesn't meet your criteria, don't waste your time. Don't waste the realtor's time. Just make sure that you're looking at places that you actually really would move into. And once you find that house that works for you, don't be dilly-dallying, move quickly. Right now in this market, there's a lot of competition. Move quickly and put in your offer. That is when you tell the realtor, okay, I like this house. They're gonna write up a letter to the, not a letter, a form to the other realtor that says, hey, we are willing to give you X amount of house for this house. They send it over, and you're either going to get a yes or a no. If you get a yes, that means your offer has been accepted. If you get a no, then your offer has not been accepted. You're going to go ahead and keep looking at more houses. You can make as many offers as you want, but of course, the more offers that you make that you get a no, it's going to get frustrating. But as you are working with your realtor, if you have a good realtor, they're going to be able to give you feedback about what it is that you might be doing that is causing you to not win these bids. Y'all still with me? If y'all still with me, drop a 1 in the chat. What questions do you have so far? And who's trying to buy a house this year? I'm very curious. Let me know who's buying a house in 2022. All right. So your offer has been accepted. What happens now? This is always this is where for me things started to get real stressful real quick. So once your offer has been accepted, you are next going to confirm that you really want to buy this house. So in that offer that you send, there's going to be can't think of the right word. Terms where you have a specific amount of time. I see a 1 in the chat. Awesome, awesome. There's going to be terms where you have X amount of days to do your due diligence. So do some extra things to make sure this house is really for you. One of those extra things is to go ahead and do an inspection. So work with your realtor or do something like work on your own. You're going to find an inspector to look at this house to see, okay, what is in this house that is great or is not so great. So they're going to look at everything from top to bottom, the roof, the sink, the heat, the water, everything. And they're going to give you this hefty report that says exactly what the state of the house is. They're not going to tell you whether or not you should or should not buy the house. This document will just tell you, here are the things that are a big concern or a small concern or hazardous. That inspection report is going to come to you, is going to go to your lender, and is also going to go to the seller. You and your realtor will look at this report, and you're going to decide whether or not you're going to move forward with buying this house, whether or not you're going to negotiate to get extra money off, or what you're going to do. So this is where your realtor is going to help you to figure out what to do next. But you definitely want to, again, be clear on your end goal and what is important to you when you're deciding whether or not something on the report is something that you're willing to move forward with or not. And then you want to just definitely double check your numbers at this point, because if you see that, for example, maybe this house is going to need a new water heater, right? If you want to move forward and the seller is not going to fix that item, is that something you can make work with that original budget? And at this time where you are deciding whether or not you want to buy this house, you are also now actually applying for a mortgage. The mortgage application doesn't actually start until you have a contract in hand. So when you get your offer accepted, this is when you actually have a contract signed between you and the seller stating you're buying a house, when you need to buy this house by, all those details. Once you have that, that is what then goes to your lender that you have decided is your number one choice. And that lender is going to take that contract and start your mortgage application. During this mortgage application process, a lot happens. This could be a whole 2-hour section just on this, but pretty much the bank is trying to decide two things. One, is this house that they want to give you money for, is it worth the investment? So When the bank is lending you money for a house, it's a loan, but it's a loan that's backed up by the house. So if you want $100,000, cool, we'll give it to you. But that house that we're giving you money for, if you don't pay us back, we're gonna take that house. So in order for them to decide whether or not this deal makes sense, that house that you buy needs to be, or that you want to buy, needs to be at the loan amount that you want or lower. If it is higher, then that doesn't make sense, right? If you wanna give somebody $100 and you want something, you wanna have some kind of backup to make sure you get the $100 back, you're not gonna have that backup be less than $100. So the same thing with the bank. So as part of that process of making sure that this house's value makes sense based on how much you want, they're gonna do an appraisal that you're gonna pay for, of course. And that appraisal is going to let the bank know whether or not this deal makes sense. So I see Takima, you're buying in by December. Yes, that's around the corner. I am all for that. Let me know what you need to get that done. And Claire, hi Claire. Claire's in Australia, but she's out here supporting us Americans who are trying to buy houses. Let me know what questions you have, guys. I am checking the chat, so drop your questions right in there. So the bank wants to make sure that they're not going to lose their money by lending you for a house that isn't worth a lot of money. And then second, they want to make sure that you are going to be able to pay them back. So yes, if you don't pay, they can take this house and sell it to get their money back. But that whole process is a big pain in the butt. Like doing a foreclosure for a bank is a whole time suck. It wastes a lot of money in legal fees, and it wastes a lot of time. The bank just wants you to pay your mortgage on time so they can make their interest and keep it moving. So those are the two things that they are looking at during this mortgage process. The main person that you're going to be talking to is going to be either the loan officer or the loan processor or both of them. But there are a whole bunch of people working in the background that are going to do a whole bunch of different things to make sure that that house is worth the investment and that you, my friend, are going to pay that money back. And they evaluate whether or not you can pay this money back by looking at a few things. One, how much your income is. Two, what your credit score is. And then three, what your debt is in relation to your income. So you don't need to make a lot of money to buy your first house, but the relationship between your debt and your income needs to be at a certain level where it passes the bank's qualification marks, right? So like I said earlier, I bought my first house making $48,000 a year in New York City, by the way. So it's definitely not about how much you make. If you think that how much you make is stopping you from buying a house, let's talk about it. It may not be a deterrent as you think it is. So once the bank has determined that you're going to pay them back and this house is going to cover their risk, then you are going to get a message from your lender telling you that you are clear to close. Until you get that message that you are clear to close, this mortgage is not approved. And this whole process of submitting your contract to actually getting your closing usually takes about a month. It could be less, it could be more, depending on what type of loan you're doing. But about a month and a half, that's a normal time frame to get this done. And once you get this clear to close, a few days after that, you're going to sit down at the closing table. And this is where you actually sign all this paperwork that officially transfers the house from the seller to you. At this closing table, after you close, that's when you actually get the keys to your house and you're good to go. And you can go ahead and pop that champagne. Every single time I close at a house, every single time I leave that closing table, I buy a bottle of expensive champagne and I pop it with my friends, and that's my celebration. And I actually keep those bottles. So I have a collection of 3 bottles downstairs. Maybe I'll share that sometime with you guys. Let me see what's going on in the chat. Claire, I actually have a nice feature that I haven't been using this whole time. I should have been. All right, so Claire says, I'm sure things are different and how things are done in the US. I'm sure it is. Oh, But she's still interested. And so Claire's trying to buy a house in about a year. From what I understand from Claire, houses are actually super, super expensive in Australia. So I know that we complain a lot here that houses are not affordable, and houses are expensive here. But when I heard about like how much you have to put down in Australia to buy a house, it's just completely wild. So again, buying a house is more attainable than you think. So I know that once you get to the closing table and you get these keys, people think that, okay, I'm done. I know when I moved into my house, I told my neighbor, okay, I'm finally done. And he said, no, no, no. This is when actually things start to get interesting. And I was like, what is he talking about? But within a few months of me moving in, my water heater completely died on me. And every single time, I won't say every time, but there are costs that come up from buying a house, right? From your taxes going up, your insurance might go up, things in the house will break. Last winter, a whole boiler went out, and that boiler literally cost me 10 grand to put in. So it may seem like it's a good idea to put in all your money into buying this house, but it's really important to focus a lot of time and energy into that first thing that I talked about, which is getting clear on what it is that you want and really getting clear on your money. Because multiple people, I'm sure you know people that have bought that first house and have ended up in financial ruin because they didn't take the time to really get clear on their finances and how this is going to fit into making their life better. You don't want them in a situation where you buy this house and now you're just working constantly to pay for this house. You want to get into a house where this house is working for you, where this house literally changes your financial outcome. Remember I said earlier, when I buy a house, I buy a house making sure that that house gets rid of my housing payment completely. Because when I look at how much I spend or how much I was spending on housing, that was the biggest expense that I had every single year. And for most people, your housing cost is the biggest expense that you have every single year. So that's why for me, my priority is to get rid of that expense, because then now I can take that money and I can travel every quarter. I can take that money and I can buy stock. I can take that money and when my mom says, I want a new TV, I'm going to put on my credit card. I can say, no, I will pay for that because I'm not paying for my housing. So buying your first house has the ability to completely change your life for the better. And I want to help you make that process as easy as possible. So if you want to take some time really diving into that first part of getting ready to buy a house, which I talked about, which is understanding your money, understanding your credit, and understanding your why. I am hosting a webinar um, uh, in a few weeks, just talking about those three things specifically and how you can have a solid plan and leverage that to have this house change your life completely. Um, so Claire says I should travel to Australia with all my extra coins from not paying rent. I actually would love to come to Australia. Um, if you are, yeah, so if you want to join the webinar, the link is in the description box on YouTube. Facebook friends, DM me. I don't think I can actually, I think if I put a comment here, I don't think it comes up on Facebook. Claire, by the way, guys, I'm doing this live because Claire has been peer pressuring me. I'm just kidding. She has not. But Claire does lives all the time. So I thought I would just hop on and be like Claire and just chat with you guys live. What questions do you guys have about buying your first house? Does this process seem like it's doable now that you know every single step? Does it seem like it's something that you can do? I am curious to know, as I am trying to find the link for the webinar. Of course, it's disappeared. All right, let me find. I had to restart my browser as I was about to come on here, and I think I actually closed the window that had it. So let's see. Takima. So Claire, Takima, it feels just fine that you have been pressuring me to to jump on this live. Okay, I got it, guys. I got it. Oh, okay. Should be perfect. All right. So the link for the webinar is down there. If you happen to be watching the replay, or if you're watching this right now, send it, share with a friend that you think would benefit from this. I always like to have friends that are adding value. So if you know you have friends that don't have a house and y'all want to have your housewarming parties together and pop your bottles together, make sure you share this information with them. Because I want to help as many women as possible to buy their first house on their own. Because I think it's an important asset to have. Because your job is not guaranteed, your partner's not guaranteed, like, your family is not necessarily going to help you with your housing. So this is just an extra chunk of change that you can have, an extra asset that you can have that will help you in the future and give you more flexibility with your finances. So, we like peer pressure. We love it. We love it. So, guys, this was a lot of fun. I probably will do these more often. Oh, do we have a question? Okay. Oh, okay. So, question that we have here is, how much money should you have saved before starting the process of buying the house? So, when you are looking at a potential house that you want, a good number to estimate in terms of how much you're going to need for the whole process is around 6%. It might be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on where you live, but you're going to need 3.5% of the for the down payment. When I say 3.5% of the price of the house. So if you're buying a house for $100,000, you're going to need 3,500 for your down payment, and then for the actual mortgage part, there's a whole bunch of different things that make up your closing costs. So you're going to have to pay, for example, a fee for them to run your credit report. You're going to have to pay a fee, some origination fees sometimes for the lender. You're going to have to pay for your insurance up front. I learned that the hard way. So an estimate for all of those things is that other 2.5%. I know when I bought in Indiana, it was around 6% what I needed pretty much. When I bought in New York City, it was more around like 8%. But if you have that 6% in cash in your bank, or in your bank plus a combination of a retirement account, that's good enough for you to talk to a lender. And if you're short with the money, they will let you know, hey, you're going to need X amount of money to finish the process. And you can always get money gifted from you from anybody, really. As long as that money has a trail, they can't just take that money in cash money and give it to you. It has to come from a bank account, has to be verifiable. But yeah, about 6% of the total cost of the house is what you want to have on hand to buy the house. We have a question from Claire. What is the biggest thing that gets in the way of people saving to buy a house? That's actually a really good question. I think the biggest thing that gets in the way is people not understanding how much they're actually spending, and then people not spending according to their priorities. So if you don't have a budget, if you don't understand how much you're actually spending and whether what you're spending is below or over your income, it's going to be hard for you to save. So the very first thing you want to do is have a budget that you actually stick to. And then once you actually start looking at how much you're actually spending every single week, every single month, you'll be able to see exactly where most of your money is going. And then based on your priorities, you should be shifting that spend, right? So when I wanted to buy a house, I had friends that I was working with that made $300K a year, literally. Me with my little $50K a year, if we're trying to hang out and y'all out there buying drinks at $20 a drink and hanging out all Sunday afternoon in New York City, I couldn't do that. So I had to shift my priorities and say, okay, guys, I only have $50 to spend this weekend. That's it. And once it's more than that, I'm taking my butt at home because my priority is to buy this house. So Get clear on your budget and get clear on your priorities. That way you can say yes and no to things that align with your priority. So if your priority is I need to save money to buy a house, then all this other fluff that isn't actually bringing you joy and isn't actually bringing you towards your goal, that has to go. And you're not going to know what those things are until you actually look at your money and really hone in on your budget. Okay, yeah. So I know we always, not we always, but a lot of people get stressed about, finding this down payment for a house, down payment and closing costs. So, okay. So in Australia, if you try to buy a house, you need to have 20% ready to go to buy this house. Here in America, 20% is only if you're buying an investment property or if you want to. You don't have to do 20%. And there are actually some loans where you can do 0%. I know there's the new Bank of America loan, but besides that, where it's more of a pilot, if you are a veteran, you can get a 0% down loan. And if you are buying in a rural area, if you get a USDA loan, you can get a 0% loan. But for most people, I think 70% of loans that are originated are either a conventional or an FHA, and that's 3.5% or 5%. So I know it's hard for us to save for this 3%, but we're not in Australia. Poor Claire has to find 20% by the end of next year to buy her house. All right. So it looks like we don't have any more questions left. This was a lot of fun. I will be doing this more often, and you might be seeing me and Claire on your screen sometime soon. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you share this with your friends, and if you have any questions, feel free to message me. Definitely drop a comment, and I will be responding. And let's go buy houses. Bye, guys.